Hi, this is Scott Silverman on behalf of the Florida Atlantic chapter of the NCGR, and today I'm interviewing Jyotish astrologer Joni Patry about her upcoming workshop, The Outer Planets, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, Events and People That Changed the World Forever and Our Future. The talk is scheduled for January 21st, 2023 from 10:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. There will be a lunch break. It is a hybrid workshop since one can attend either in person or remotely. Attendees will receive a recording of the event. Okay, let's begin. Regarding your workshop topic, under what circumstance is it helpful to situate the transpersonal planetary trio of Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto in a Jyotish horoscope? Does using Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto in a horoscope automatically make you a neo-Vedic astrologer, or are there other astrological attributes associated with such a designation?
Yes, that is a wonderful question, because traditionally, the Vedic astrologers do not use the three outer planets. But there are a few who started using them. And to be perfectly honest with you, Scott, I wouldn't have gone into Vedic astrology if I didn't know I could use the outer planets. That's how important they are to me. So I started figuring out why they wouldn't use them. First of all, they're not visible to the naked eye. Therefore, it makes them more transpersonal. Whereas the planets that are visible to the naked eye, they have such an effect on our lives in terms of what's going on physically. But you see, I have found that the three outer planets are more transpersonal. Of course, they're more generational, as we have people that have these planets in generations. It makes a whole generation who they are. And they move so slow, they're so long lasting, they have such strong effects. What I discovered was they don't rule the houses. No, it's kind of like Hellenistic astrology that they use. They do not use the outer planets as house rulers. They use the old rulership. That really works in terms of the planets ruling the houses. And you can't include them in that dynamic, or it messes up the whole perfect structure of the Vedic chart. But when you use them, and when you have an outer planet, let's say it's very tightly conjunct or opposed, one of your visible planets, inner planets is what I'll call them, it reflects so heavily onto that planet, such as somebody that has Pluto conjunct the sun will be totally different than someone that has the sun without Pluto. It's going to heavily influence these inner planets that really represent our physical world day to day. But the outer planets give this incredible shift in energy when they're aspecting tightly one of the inner planets, such as you have to know, if you see somebody with, let's say, Neptune conjunct the moon, they're going to be so different, their moon energy, than the moon without that Neptune influence. So what I am here to teach in this class is how much these outer planets affect the inner planets in a chart. You don't have to look at them as house rulers or ruling signs, but as they sit with our inner planets. And you know what I found? It was actually during COVID that I wrote these 3 books. It was always on my to-do list that I wanted to write a book on each outer planet. And since I got grounded and I couldn't go anywhere anymore traveling.
We all did.
Yeah, I had the time to write about these. And I actually made an epiphany by the time I finished the Pluto book. And what epiphany I made was, it was people that really changed and influenced the world tremendously. I don't mean just a little bit, tremendously, that had these tight conjunctions or oppositions of the outer planets. And what I found is they will be remembered after their birth. They leave a legacy.
And squares.
Sometimes it's not good, though, for good or bad. right?
Exactly. And squares aren't necessarily
They
involved,
work too, but
not
I
as
made a
strongly.
point. I made a point. No, you know what? When Neptune's squaring something by transit, I mean, you'll never forget it.
Oh my
Don't.
God, I know. I know.
It's those tight degrees, really. It's those tight degrees. Yes, but in the book, I made my point by really looking at the conjunctions and oppositions because they're so easy to spot for people. And in Vedic astrology, they don't look at the square of every planet. They just really look at the squares of Saturn and Mars, actually.
Right.
But I have found that you've got to use all of the aspects. I actually just wrote a new book. Let me put a little plug in for that.
All right. What
It's
and what were the 3 books called that you wrote during COVID as well? Since
this,
you were last in South Florida pre-COVID.
yes,
So
yes.
we
Well,
need
they're
an
just
update.
Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto.
Ah,
Yeah. So if you'll Google my name with the, go to Amazon, you will find all of my books on Amazon. And my newest one is My Secrets. It's called My Secrets, My Techniques and Tools That Really Work. So it's really the secrets, my techniques and tools. And what this book is I put together all of the things that I found absolutely work in my 40 years of experience. My 40 years of experience, yes, this is what really I have found that works with all of my clients through thick and thin. And what I did in this book is I put all these famous people, celebrities that we all know, and proved my point about how these techniques truly work, such as I did go over, here's one that I think is so cool, and it seems so general, but it works, and maybe you can attest to this. And this is, what, really and truly, this would apply to Western astrology as well as Vedic. So remember this, Scott. I did Western astrology for 20 years before I went into
you
Vedic.
did Uranian Western
Yes,
astrology,
I
among
even
other
did the
things.
Uranian.
We
I
have a
tried it.
question about that later. Yes. All right.
Yes, I tried it all out because I wanted to be the best astrologer I could be. And that means, using all the different tools and techniques and systems out there to see what really works. And so this one, I find if you have, and I'm just going to call it a hard aspect between Pluto and Venus, let's say they're tightly conjunct or they're tightly opposed, or they can even be in a square, but a tight one,
Right.
you will feel deep betrayal in love. And that sounds too general, but I've never seen this not work.
Thank God I have a quintile between
Yeah.
Venus and Pluto. Now you've made me love it more. All right.
Well, and for example, in my book, I use 3 examples. The first one was Phil Hartman. I don't know if you remember, maybe some
Saturday
of
Night Live, right? Was he
Yeah,
murdered by his
he was
wife?
murdered by his wife.
Yeah.
Pluto is exactly conjunct his Venus in the 7th house, to give you a prime example.
Oh my God.
And Gucci, she hired a hitman to kill her husband. He has Pluto conjunct Venus in the 1st house, aspecting the 7th house. Not to mention, these 2 gentlemen were born 2 days apart. And I actually have a 3rd person I can't remember right now in the book. But yeah.
We have other questions. That's okay. Yeah.
That's enough. So I'm just giving you some of my tools.
Great.
And that's, also part of my Pluto talk, which I'm going to be delivering in Florida. Yes.
Right. On the 21st. Yes.
Yes.
Of January.
Yes.
Well, I know you probably answered this question, but I'll ask it anyway. Will this workshop be dealing with tropical or sidereal planetary positions?
Sidereal. I feel like the sidereal is more accurate. Now, I know a lot of tropical astrologers don't want to hear that, but you know what? You can come listen to the talk and you can apply it to the tropical, because I'm mainly talking about conjunctions and oppositions with planets.
Exactly.
And they're going to be conjunct or opposed no matter if you're using tropical or sidereal.
Look who you're talking to. I'm a Uranian that threw out the signs a long time ago.
Yeah.
I mean, if I'm doing a different type of astrology, I change my hat. I put in the signs, of course, but
But you
Well,
don't mix them. Some people want to mix them. And people are like that come from the tropical Western, they say, yeah, but in my chart in the Western astrology, it's here. How can that be there? You don't try to put Western astrology into Vedic, nor do you try to put Vedic astrology into Western. You just let go of your Western,
mindset.
mindset.
Yeah.
That's a better word. That's a better way to say it. And open to a whole new world that's gonna make you a better astrologer.
Listen, I think everyone should know their chart in both systems. That's my personal point of
I
view.
love that you think that way because you're open-minded. It's true. Yes.
Now let me ask you, who coined the term Neo-Vedic astrology anyway? I believe it goes back to the 1980s. And is this term used in India at all?
I really don't know. I know David Frawley's came up with Vedic astrology because essentially, or actually it goes back before Frawley, but the first time I heard that was from David Frawley. But really, it's Indian astrology, it's Hindu astrology.
Right. It's still controversial, by the way, whether to say Vedic or Jyotish. It's so fascinating that it never dies, that conversation, right?
You're so right. Yeah, it's so controversial. Neo-Vedic just really means that you're adding the three outer planets.
Adding the three outer planets. And let's not forget there are people in our past like Buzz Overbeck who used Sidereal but threw in the TNPs, or you have Ernest Wilhelm who's using tropical, right? So, if it works for you and you can give a good prediction, we don't care. Okay.
Yeah, that's the truth.
now, let me ask you, does the analysis of the transpersonal triad, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto by sign and house and sidereal position give one different information? And also, is there such a thing as Shad Bala, or directional strength, for these slow-moving planets?
Okay. Yes. Actually, I simplify them more so than no, I don't believe in going through all the Vedic relationships like Shad Bala with the outer planets, because a lot of people don't even use the three outer planets in the divisional charts.
Exactly.
So, but you can, there's different schools of thought there, but I just leave them plain, clear, and simple, because it's not necessarily that their house placement, or they don't rule houses, but how they influence the planets that we can see in the chart. That's my whole premise on this talk and my research on the outer planets. Does that explain it?
And you don't necessarily care if they're in angular houses, say.
It's going to affect the planets that are in angular houses. Yes.
Okay, in the Kendras, yes.
So that's more important. Their aspect in relationship to the inner planets, that those inner planets take on that energy of the outer planets. That's how they work.
Well, we're almost done with section 1. I have to ask you, what happens when Rahu and Ketu, the north and south node of the moon, are found conjunct or opposite Uranus, Neptune, or Pluto in a birth chart? Does such a chart placement emphasize or step up the intensity of the transpersonal planets, or do these shadow planets cast a shadow across them and alter the expression of Uranus, Neptune, or Pluto in the client's life in a significant way?
Wow, that's a heavy one. That's a lot to think about, because
you can say pass.
when you say that, I'm thinking about right now in the heavens, we just had Rahu conjunct Uranus, right? That just happened. And that happened around August 1st, July 31st, 2022, because on those 2 days, that was when Mars actually conjoined that degree marking as well. So they all came together, Mars, Uranus, and you have me saying Uranus. I say Uranus. So Mars, Uranus, and Rahu all conjoined sidereally at 24 degrees of Aries. And this was an amazing time. And what I think is everything is ramping up during that time. Actually, just had a client today, very interesting, because he follows Vedic astrology very closely, and he said his wife got pregnant on that day.
Amazing.
And 2 weeks later, she miscarried. That's how
Not
intense
so amazing. Yeah.
that conjunction was. So to get back to your point, do they work together? One doesn't overshadow the other. So the Uranus Rahu, this was such intense energy, and what was going on in the world really was intense. And I think a lot of it's kind of still hasn't surfaced or come out what's been going on, politically or even in our personal lives. But Uranus, you got to consider, is a planet of change and technology, and everything is changing. Plus, we've come upon all sorts of things that have been uncovered through technology. We wouldn't know half of what's going on in the world if we didn't have technology. And I think it's bringing out a lot of instances of truth that we didn't know before. And I think, and not only that, Scott, to take it a little deeper, which this goes another level, you can also look at the nakshatra that these planets are transiting in, because they're in Bharani, and that nakshatra is always breakthroughs and something new is coming. And I think technology is going to a new level because of the Uranus and Rahu conjunction that we're looking at pretty much still this whole entire year, till the node will change next November. Rahu Ketu will change into Pisces Virgo from Aries Libra.
Right. Great answer. Well, with no dasha placements for Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, is your work with them mostly about transits? I don't think I say the word gachara correctly. I even went online and listened to pronunciation in Hindi, and it was escaping me. But, so mostly it's about transits and natal positions then.
It is. In my work, it has been.
Okay.
And by the way, I try to make this more palatable for the Western astrologers. So I don't even go through all the Vedic terminology. I just use the word transit instead of gachara. So that's, it's just,
I think I'll follow your example on that.
and it's okay. A lot of people don't like that I don't talk as much in the Vedic system, but most of my students are Westerners, and most of them, it confuses them. But when people take my university, I do require that they learn the all of the terminology. But when you're talking to a client, they're not gonna know what you're talking about when you use all the Vedic terminology.
Well, we're going to be getting to the university in a minute. So I just wondered, have you researched what happens when significant chart factors such as the yogi point are in the same degree as your Uranus, Neptune, or Pluto? And is there anything else you'd like to explain or clarify about the workshop before we move on?
Okay, good question. But I got to tell you, I worked with the yogi point years ago, and I didn't find it to be effective. So I kind of let that go. So to answer your question, I don't know.
I want the honest answer, and that's great. Yeah. Tell us a little bit more about your own astrological background. As I mentioned, I know you started out as a Uranian symmetrical astrologer way back when. How did your transformation from Uranian to Jyotish astrologer come about?
Well, I started astrology in the 70s, right? And I had to calculate a chart by hand. We didn't have computers. So, of course, I started out with the traditional, reading a chart, dealing with progressions, the progress chart, the transits.
And you did it all by hand?
Yeah.
Or all by calculator, yes.
Yeah, we did it. We had to use ephemeris, and we had to use the logarithms. We had to use the time change books. Doris Chase Doan, remember that?
People have thrown them out. No one has their old Doris Chase Doan books anymore.
Oh, I do, and I still use it sometimes because we can get into that another time. But some of those Chicago people born they wrote it down. They wrote it down in the birth time. In standard time, even though there was daylight savings time and all the computer softwares will do it for
the wrong
daylight
time,
savings
yes.
time, and the chart's wrong unless you've had this extensive training that goes way back when.
Indianapolis, Indiana too,
Yep.
right?
My teacher used to always say any state that begins with an I, but I don't think he meant Idaho, but it was all those in the Midwest.
Oh my God. Yeah. You know, the other Western Jyotish astrologer with your background is Edith Hathaway. Do you two keep in touch or compare notes?
Yes, as a matter of fact, she was at my last conference that I had in Dallas in 2019 before they all got shut down. Yeah. We haven't spoken lately, but she definitely came from, she actually did the Uranian astrology. I remember being in classes way back in the day. So the reason why I went from Western, just the progressions of transits, by the way, my interest has always been in prediction. So I looked for all the tools that could help predict, because that's why people would always come to me for a reading. They would want to know what's going to be happening this next year. What do I need to prepare for? And I think, that's basically what my business is built on. So I did find that the Uranian astrology had beautiful predictive power, but I felt like after a while it was finding a needle in a haystack, because you looked at all those planetary pictures and it was like a book this thick, and it used a lot of the angles, which absolutely make things happen, and the aspects. But with that knowledge of knowing the hard aspects and knowing, the inconjuncts or the quincunx, how they all work, I actually take that in my prior knowledge and I still apply it in my Vedic work. And
so you do occasionally look where Hades
look.
and Apollon are, for example?
No, I don't look
No.
at the Trans-Neptunians anymore. No.
Anymore, no. Okay.
But the aspects that a lot of astrologers do not use, such as the quincunx. But
right. Yeah.
And actually, the quincunx is what's called the Shastaka aspect in Vedic.
Really?
And really, all of the aspects, just like in Western, have a meaning as well. The sextile, the trine, all of those for all the planets. It's just they have a level of strength. It's like all the squares are 75% in power. The Vedic full aspects are 100%. And, like the sextile and other ones, they may be 45% strength, but they still have an effect. Absolutely. And it gets a little complicated, but I call them a 212. That would be, and then the next sign over from each other. And the sextile would be a 311 relationship. If you count from one to the other, it would be 3 houses and 11 houses. And the 410 is the square. The 5-9 is the trine. And the 6-8 is the quincunx, and the 7-7 is the opposition. So that's really how I incorporate all the aspects from planet to planet.
It brings a little numerology in, perhaps,
Absolutely.
as well. Right.
Yeah.
And Layman has written years ago about the difference between a 6th house quincunx and an 8th house quincunx. And I have to reread that chapter. It's gone. It's gone with the wind. But
it's so true. I know all that. All this matters. It does.
Now, who was your first astrology teacher?
Oh my God.
That you remember?
Bob Wilkinson. Yes, Bob Wilkinson.
I know of his work, yes.
Oh yeah, Austin, Texas. Oh my God, all the hippies. While all my girlfriends were going to sororities, I was going to study astrology with all the hippies in 1970.
Wearing moccasins, no doubt. Right, yes.
Oh, well, drinking that carrot juice and smoking that stuff, And I came all prim and proper and sat down on the floor with all the hippies with my Farrah Fawcett hairdo and painted nails. I look like a freak to them.
Wonderful. Wonderful. You kept them guessing. They said, is she a narc? Is she from the CIA? Right.
Right.
Who were your first Jyotish teachers?
Okay, Dennis Flaherty and Dennis Harness.
Dennis Flaherty.
Yes, and the reason why they use the outer planets, that's what convinced me, okay, you can learn Vedic now.
Great.
Yes.
And of course, Dennis was my first Jyotish teacher. Yeah. So
Yeah.
we have a little
Good.
kinship there. And I studied a little with Dennis. Well, now
Yeah.
you've been very busy establishing your own educational bulwark. Your school is the University of Vedic Astrology, and it offers a certification program.
Mhm.
Would you tell me a little bit about that? And the first thing I want to know, by the way, is do you have many students from India or any students from India in your school?
I actually have students in every continent in the world and almost every country. It's amazing how it's grown. And I always tell people my University of Vedic Astrology is the thing I'm most proud of in my life, except for my 3 sons.
Right. You and Fred
I'm
McMurray.
most proud of them.
You and Fred McMurray.
I'm the typical mother that is so over the moon, top proud of her sons. But the university, I constructed it as a community. So we all come together online, and no matter where you are on the globe, you can find people that are part of the university all online. We have a Telegram group where everybody converses. I do live classes every single week for the university, except for when we have our vacations. We plan vacations too. But it usually takes, if you take it slow and easy and follow the videos, I mean, not the videos, the live videos, because there's actually 40 videos that are recorded. You watch them, then you take an exam afterwards. And the beauty of this, you're not alone. You are assigned a live tutor that's already graduated from the university. So I get the people to graduate, and then they become employees. I pay them, and they start making the money back that they paid for the university. And I also put students, I want to groom people to be real astrologers, not just memorize and know stuff, but how do you read a chart and how do you converse with the person? So it takes about a year for you to get through all of the videos. It can take a shorter amount of time because it is self-paced, but when people follow along with the live videos that I do weekly, then it takes them around a year. But some people have finished in 6 months.
And they certify them, they get certified in a year. That's pretty quickly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, it's true. And I also have a workbook that goes along with it. You get your live tutor. And here's the thing, you listen in on the live videos. And once you paid for a certain semester, there's actually 6 semesters, you get to watch the videos. If you, let's say that you join this year and later on you have some catastrophes in your life and you can't finish out. You can join a year later or 2 years later down the line. You can always come back and you can always listen to all the live
And you can pick up where you left off, right?
Yes,
Okay,
but you
good.
can always, even if you graduated, you can come back and listen to all the live videos, because it's kind of like a community. We all come together and we get to talk, and they ask me questions about a certain subject that they should be taking their exam on, or their, it's not really an exam, but a test. And once you've finished, I give the 6th semester is you're going to solve all the problems. I give charts and I say, when did this person get married within a 10-year radius? And until you get it right, you don't pass that one. When did this person come into money? And until you pass that one. So I have all these scenarios. You've got to really apply everything that you've learned, and you will get it right. You'll be able to predict and to speak to people in such a way that you are an astrologer. So I empower all my students. I even put my graduates for readings. If somebody doesn't want to, I'm booked up.
An old school network. There you go.
Yeah, they can get you can get a reading with my students instead of me, because I'm booked up for 6 months or so. That's how it works.
Do I get the sense that some of your students also write for the magazine that we'll be talking about?
That's another thing. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, Scott. I have a magazine that I started about 6 months ago. I think it was last.
And I call it the astrology world's answer to O Magazine. There you go. But yes. You're not. But you don't put yourself on the cover as much. I think you've only been on the cover once. So
that's because whoever's on the cover is the interview, who we interview for the month. So when we started the magazine, I was the one who was interviewed, but we interview all these other interesting astrologers or metaphysical people. We put them on the cover and we write about them.
I was just reading Are you
And
there?
they're Ronnie
Oh, yeah.
Dreyer was on
Right.
our
I was just
last
reading that interview today,
Yes.
actually. And
Wonderful. Good. And so this magazine, it's actually my student said I have to put my name on it. I didn't want to, but it's Joni Patry's.
Astrological Insights.
Exactly. Thank you.
Yes.
So that's my magazine, but no, there's always going to be somebody different that we interview in the magazine. And my students from the university write such great articles. They have formed a lot of research groups from the university, and there's one on health and healing. There's actually doctors in that group.
Wonderful.
Medical doctors that have taken my courses and are working together with their research in medical astrology and all these other, predictive techniques and tools that they're working with. And we're also presenting other astrologers that may not be part of the university to write beautiful.
Well, I saw that. Alana Nan, I believe, is writing for your magazine. Yes. Yeah.
And Mark Boney's going to be our next interview.
Excellent. Well, that's good. I'm glad I subscribed for the year.
Yes.
We're going to get back to the school in a second. I just want to know what made you decide to launch your own magazine in the first place?
Okay, because I actually launched a magazine with a girlfriend of mine, Victoria, that we had Astrologic magazine. And it got to the point where she became very strong and powerful. And I said, why don't you do your own magazine on your specialties, which she reads cards and she reads dreams. So she branched off to have her own magazine that she has more along those lines. And I branched off to have my magazine. Actually, Victoria and I had Astrologic for about 7 years together.
I never saw that. I never knew about it. Fire the publicist. Fire the publicist.
Yeah, right. So she does Astrologic magazine, which is more about dreams and tarot cards, where ours is more astrology, and it does have some Western.
I did see an article on tarot cards, but let me ask you this. How steep has the learning curve been for you putting out the magazine?
What do you mean, my learning curve? Putting out the magazine? Actually,
you were prepared from having this other.
I'll tell you why, Scott. I have such amazing support with my university people. I have people, Shrikala Ram, we call her Shri, but she has helped me tremendously. And Madeline, she's a graduate from the university, and I have all these other people that have all these gifts and talents that are just amazing. And so, nobody can do this kind of stuff alone. I have support from some of the most loving and amazing people that have been part of my school. And we're going to have a conference too. You got to come.
I saw that. I hope to. Listen, is there ever going to be a hard copy option for your magazine for those of us who don't like reading things on screens or have vision problems? Like, I tried to print it to Microsoft PDF on my laptop, but no dice. Right.
You know what, Scott? That is just way beyond my comprehension to have to go into a printed version because it's so expensive.
Right. No, maybe you could send out special PDFs that people couldn't distribute that they could print. I don't know.
I don't know. I'll ask my team, but I have a team. Trust me, I can't do all this by myself.
And did you know who you wanted to have editor as the magazine, or did you have to hunt high and low?
It naturally evolved.
Great.
It's just weird. It just naturally all came together.
It flowed. That's perfect. That's perfect. Yeah. Well, now we're going to backpedal just a little bit. And I know that you've been regularly posting videos of your mundane predictions on YouTube. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with the term mundane, we don't mean boring or run-of-the-mill, au contraire. We're talking about predicting the future for the world or the collective, making predictions about nations, political entities that often have to do with financial, cultural, epidemiological, and meteorological. That's weather, global trends.
World predictions.
World predictions. So some of the forecasts you've chosen to share recently are not exactly good news and are perhaps best not watched right before bed. So I'm wondering if you have any thoughts about the ethics of sharing essentially negative forecasts with a larger audience. This can be an especially tricky path to traverse. I was booking speakers for another astrology group and asked Bill Meridian to do a mundane prediction talk, and he said he'd rather not because he had nothing good to say about 2023. I do think you strive to end your forecast on an uplifting note. Is that true?
Definitely. I mean, there is no such thing as something really bad. Everything is growth producing. And really, if you want to say COVID was bad, a lot of good came out of COVID. Think about all the people that are now able to work out of their homes that couldn't before. You know, a lot of really positive things. And a lot of people, I just talked to someone today, her husband's business went out the roof because he had take-home food instead of restaurant food. I mean, there's always something good that comes out of something bad, Scott, always. And we have to train ourselves to see it. Where are the opportunities when something like this happens? I'm telling you, it's a beautiful way to look at the world. There's always the yin and the yang. There's always the negative and the positive. And by the way, I was at an NCGR conference where I gave my predictions for 2020 in 2019 with Bill Meridian. And I can't, were you there? It was in
I wasn't. I'm sorry I wasn't there. I would have loved that.
And so I'm sitting here telling people there is going to be an event that changes the world forever in 2020. Somebody in my prediction class just came back at me and said, I was there in Baltimore. I heard you, and you were the only one that said this. And so I said, there's going to be something that changes the world forever. It's going to be something like, and I said like 9/11. Essentially, it really is. But people said, oh, it wasn't a terrorist attack. Yes, it was.
Yes,
biological. So anyway, I said that, and some people came up to me afterwards and said, why are you so negative? That's Vedic astrology. Why are you so negative? I said, I'm sorry, but I see this very clearly. Remember, I went through the whole dissertation about every time Rahu, which is the north node of the moon, and Ketu, which is the south node of the moon, go into Gemini and Sagittarius, we always have a catastrophic event. I've told this, I went over my YouTubes many, many times before this happened. Let me count back just, if you go back 18 and a half years, it takes 18 and a half years for Rahu and Ketu to go through all 12 signs and to return to Gemini and Sagittarius. I'm talking sidereal placements.
Right.
But every time there's been a catastrophic event, go back 18 and a half years from 2020, we arrive at 2001. Go back 18 and a half, and we all know what happened in 2001. I don't think I need to explain.
Right.
That.
Well, this is eclipses and metonic cycles, right?
Right. So go back 18 and a half years prior to that. We came up with the AIDS virus, 1982. Go back 18 and a half years prior to that, comes to 1963, assassination of Kennedy. Go back 18 and a half years ago from that, it was the bombing of Hiroshima. It's always something huge like that. And I saw it coming. By the way, it's like 2038 or 2039. Be prepared. It's going to be even worse than this last
Will I be here? But yeah.
I know. I said, I don't know if I'll be here, but one way or another, this is cycles in astrology. So you have
basic cycles that aren't actually taught. It's so interesting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's my take on that.
Okay, well, are there things predictably you'd think twice about sharing with a mass audience via your uploaded videos? And if so, what kinds of things?
Oh, of course. Politics, definitely politics. I did share something my husband said I shouldn't have, but I did, and it's going to be coming out on YouTube this month. Who killed Kennedy?
Oh,
I know who killed Kennedy, and I'm going to be talking about that in Florida at this talk too.
I hope I'll be there. I'm pretty sure I'll be there, but I may be there in astral body because I may have to watch the recording.
Well, let's just face it, everyone died back in the 60s that said anything about it.
Oh my God, Dorothy Cagallon, come on, right?
I know. So I'm just thinking everyone's dead anyway, so I guess I can come out with it.
You can, because listen, what was this? How dare they lock up Jacqueline Kennedy's papers again for another 25 years? Do you know what I mean? Who doesn't want the truth known, right? I have to ask.
Why are they suppressing it? You want to know why?
After all this time, why?
You want to know why? Hey, it's our government.
There you go. I was afraid that would be the answer. Yeah.
It's our government. It's the CIA. It was LBJ, and I shouldn't be saying all this, and the oil people here in Texas. And I know some of the families, and I know things I shouldn't know. So, but when I show you the chart of LBJ and compare the chart to Kennedy and the transits, it's going to blow your mind.
I can't wait. I can't wait.
It's actually in my Pluto book too.
You know, when you do your own mundane forecasting work, do you ever look over the mundane work of other astrologers for confirmation once you're done with your own? All right.
Yeah, once I'm done with my own, yes, but not before, because I don't want it to sway me in any way.
Why do you think astrologers in India are so keen about making predictions about U.S. elections and politics? I mean, I've been in panels where everyone else is in India in Zoom rooms, and and they don't care what's going on there. They want to talk about the U.S. election, right?
I guess because it's just so much more emotional and vivid, and and we just wonder, what's the reality and the truth of what we're really being told all the time,
I know. Let me ask you, by the way, I meant to ask earlier, did you elect a time for your school, or did you just let it happen?
No, I elected the time, and the first semester where I begin the whole school over again, I chose a specific date. It's January 25th, by the way. And that is incredible because it's Saraswati's birthday.
Yep.
And they say that is the most auspicious day to start any studies. And of course, I chose that day because Jupiter's conjunct the moon in Pisces. And I looked at the whole chart in the whole beginning. I always do.
How great. So I'm going to ask you for that chart sometime. Now,
I mean, why would we not use what?
Well, no, I know. Well,
that's why we're doing this.
But you'd be surprised that sometimes people don't. It
bemuses being a flight attendant for most of my life, I didn't look at every day I had to go to work. Otherwise, I would have called in sick every day. So I didn't look at that so much, except for when Mercury went retrograde, and I told the crews that I was working with, I always said, listen, today everything's going to go haywire. They laughed at me till it started going haywire. Then they'd come and they'd say, what's going to happen next?
What's your preferred Jyotish software? And you can have more than one. You can pick 5.
My favorite has to be Parashara's Light, just because it's beautiful. I'm very aesthetic. I like beauty and color and design, and it's beautiful. And it has the features that I like. And actually, I use it in all my classes and give my students get a discount on the program, because we all kind of want to learn how to use the program together too.
How accurately can you predict for yourself and your closest family members, or do you tend to steer clear of that?
Oh, I always do. It gives me a heads up on what to do. Although I will tell mothers to be careful with looking at your kids' charts, because you're always looking at the day that you're going to die or something horrible is going to happen to you through your kids' charts. Stop that. Don't do that. I tell mothers not to do that.
Well, to what extent has your knowledge of astrology made you a better parent?
Well, you know what? I actually, and you can ask my son, Austin. I told him the day he would meet his wife. And he actually, he always wants me to do his chart, because it gives him the time to know when to look forward to with business matters, everything. All 3 of my sons have always, they've never done anything.
So they'll come to you and say, read my chart, Mom. Great.
Absolutely. And so my youngest son would write down in his phone all these different dates, and one date that I wrote that he'd meet someone. Well, he meets this girl, and I mean to tell you, it is love at first sight. And so they go back to, the apartment or something, and he shows her his phone. He said, my mom said I was going to meet you today. He shows her the phone. And actually, I'm surprised she married him. after that. But no, I've always helped my children, and it helps me understand when they're going through a hard time. And, it's just, that's what astrology is a tool for, to help people. Why
Did
wouldn't
you
you
did
use
you ever
it?
know did you ever know Diana Rosenberg?
Yes, of
So
course. You
remember,
helped us at that time.
her daughter wouldn't get on a plane until her mother had checked the flight departure chart,
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I don't know what she does now, but
yeah, yeah.
um I guess I really need to wrap this up, but I will ask, I never knew you had a phone app. I just learned that today.
Yeah.
And your phone app is called Joni Patry Daily Astrology. How does that work? What's that all
Oh
about?
my God, Scott, that was so hard to do because I had to write every interpretation, over 1,000 and something interpretations of all the possibilities of transits in your chart. I wrote them all, and we had a team in India, and these lovely people who had this company, Cosmic Insights, produced this app for me. And every single thing in it, it's like you put your birth chart in, and it will tell you every day what it doesn't really go so much into what aspects doing what, but it gives you a prediction for every day based on your chart, depending where the transiting moon is, all the transit planets relative to your personal birth chart. Yes, and writing all those interpretations was, whew, is
Now,
that a mind
is
trip?
this so? Is this like a free app, or do people buy it?
No, people buy it.
All
Yes.
right,
Yeah.
and it's mostly for the phone.
Yes.
All right, all right.
Yeah, it's an
Wow,
app.
it's an app. Yeah. All right. Well, listen. Is there anything else you'd like to tell me or share with our viewers, if there are any? We hope there will be, about the workshop, and like whose charts are we going to be looking at? We're looking at all these people who
Oh,
rocked
yeah.
the world, whose life was never
Yes.
the same when they got done
Right.
with us. Who are some of these people?
Well, Kennedy and LBJ and Jacqueline Kennedy, Diana. Uh, and, here's something that really taught me a lot. When we had the COVID, it was like, I really came into the understanding everyone that's really had, like even Benjamin Franklin, he changed the world. And of course, Steve Jobs and all of these people that really changed the world. They all had these outer planets making a major aspect to their inner planets. And, even some composers you will see, Mozart and all these people that had a major effect.
So, in a sense, these people with the outer planet connections are like avatars of change, basically.
Yeah, so when you see that, yeah, they create these monumental changes in the world, whether they knew they were going to, or if they planned to or not. Yes.
I'll end you with a spiritual question, because we should go someplace spiritual. So in India, we're told life is Maya, life is illusion, right? There's much more to this life than we understand. How does that inform your practice of astrology on a daily level?
Well, it helps me to help people know that when they're going through a rough time, first of all, in astrology, what's wonderful is we can tell people when it will be over. So that gives people light at the end of the tunnel to be able to endure the hardships and the trials and tribulations that they may be going through. But to realize that in the big scope of things, the things that we think are so horrible and, suicidal practically over, are in the big scheme of spirituality and truth, are not even important. What's important is the message that we learn from it all, because really what it's all about is our own self-development, and relationships and experiences in this life give us this information about us that helps us grow spiritually, and it is all there in the chart. And I think if you really think about the ancient Vedas, that astrology is actually mentioned, it's the oldest reference. They said that astrology was the eyes of the Vedas. That's what
Right.
Jyotish actually means, the science of light. And in the hymn of man and the Vedas, astrology is the eyes. So what I surmise from that is it gives us sight into the darkness of this world, to give us vision of the truth of who we really are and what we will evolve through enlightenment. That's truly what astrology is here to do for all of us.
That's great. Well, Joni, thank you so much for agreeing to speak to me on behalf of our Florida NCGR group. I guess I'll see you on January 21st, and all you viewers, the website again with information about the workshop, in case you stubbornly refused to make a note of it earlier, is https://astrologyfla.com. And you can even put in Joni-Patry-outer planets, outer dash and planets, and this will take you right to the sign up page. Joni herself also has a website that you might want to visit, and that's the galacticcenter.org, https://galacticcenter.org. And yes, there are 3 C's in Galactic Center. Don't make the mistake I made and leave one out. Yeah. So, Joni, anything else you'd like to add, or remarks you'd like stricken from the record? What?
Oh my God, no, you covered everything and then some, Scott. You are very, very thorough. But I just want people to know astrology, I consider the divine science. And it is the science of all sciences, and it will teach us the truth. And I do think that with Vedic astrology, it's given me more of an understanding of our human behavior and our experience on Earth and what we're here to achieve, grow through, and evolve, and find that moksha, which is spiritual liberation from this world. And this is all in the charts. And the more you get more attuned to astrology, especially in the Vedic sense, you're going to find these answers. And that goes back to, why are we here? That's why I got into astrology, and that's what it teaches us. So thank you, Scott, for everything you do and having
You're
this
so welcome.
interview.
All right. Goodbye, Joni.